Hello and welcome to episode number 220 of the Board Game Barrage podcast, a podcast about board games, the latest hotness, and how to have fun with your friends even when you're losing. I am here with my friends, Mark and Neelan.
Hello.
I think that was your most radio DJ sort of voice ever.
I really went for it.
Yeah, I could tell.
On account, I said that we were here, but in reality, we're not here. We're stretched across a den of sin, South Africa, and the best city in the world, Los Angeles. So I felt like I needed to sort of make up for it.
To unite us, yeah. If not in physical body, in spirit.
It's also noon here, right? So we're helping Neelan out, who has had to record in the wee morning hours and is now recording in the late hours. But noon energy is really different than late night energy. Let me tell you something. Or is it the cold brew talking? Who can say? Today on the Board Game Barrage podcast, we are going to be continuing a fantasy draft series that we started last year. For those newer listeners, we will be drafting a collection of board games from the BoardGameGeek top 501 to 600 games. We're going to be drafting a collection of 5 games, and then you, the listener, are going to vote on which collection you like the best, and you are going to win $50. Well, one of you will win a $50 gift card to an online board game retailer of choice. We hope it's Target.com, but it can be any retailer that sells board games that you like. That is what we are doing after the jump, but before we get there, we're going to talk about the games that we played. Neelan is going to update us on Imperium, the Contention. I am going to talk to us about Wonderland's War, and Mark is going to take us home with some thoughts on Gentes, Gaunt. Who can say how you pronounce the game, but he will say, coming up soon. Neelan, talk to us about Imperium, the Contention.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to bring this up again is for 2 main reasons. A, I'm in South Africa and I've not played any other games. And B, I played this 2-player, which I was actually very keen to try after our 4-player bout of this at Dice Tower West. Because I had this feeling, this sense that it would do particularly well as a 2-player game. And I think that has turned out to be mostly true. I have some reservations about it, but I think the thing that was interesting about it is that it very much starts to shine in one of the ways, at least, that Mark sold it to us, which is Magic the Gathering meets a 4X game. So if you missed our episode a few weeks ago where we spoke about Imperium the Contention, very quick summary is that this is a card-driven 4X type game with a science fiction theme. So imagine something like a Twilight Imperium and Eclipse, but you're playing cards. You have a very Magic the Gathering style pay resources, get a card out, cast spells effectively to do actions on a board. Like you have ships that are moving around a board where you're getting colonies in order to get points and win the game. The one rule that changes in the 2-player game is there's an instant win if you destroy the other player's homeworld. So it ends up being a lot more focused, a lot more singular. Just get your enemy ships out, get them to the enemy homeworld, and just do as much damage to it as quickly as possible, which ends up with these really sort of intense peaks where you start to realize, oh, the other player now has enough damage just to kill my homeworld outright. How do I counteract that? It becomes a little bit more like, okay, here's an immediate threat. How do I work against that threat? By repositioning my ships, by getting out the crucial card I need, which will start to sound a lot more familiar to something like a Magic the Gathering. You have lethal damage on the board. How do you deal with it? How do you counteract it? I found that really, really interesting because I think the thing that Imperium the Contention adds to this style of dueling card game is it just all feels less abstract, right? Because you have a map, you have ships moving around this map, so there's a physicality to it, like a geography where you are looking at an actual battlefield versus here's my row of creatures versus your row of creatures. I like it a lot in that regard. The one thing I really was hoping would feel a lot better was the weird turn order stuff. You know how when the scepter moves from player to player, that really determines the order that the ships move? In some ways, definitely better at 2 players, but in other ways worse, because now it's just okay, am I on the attack this turn? And that alternates every other turn, basically. Whether you're playing first or second is huge. It's more exacerbated, but because it goes back and forth, it does feel a little bit less, but not entirely absolved, I guess I'd say. The simultaneous card play is like blistering fast at 2 players. It feels much closer to Magic the Gathering. I'll play a card, you play a card until the round ends, and rounds just move quickly. So I thought this was real solid. It did take half an hour, which is exactly what I was hoping for, and felt really, really, really good. I want to try more of this at 2 players. I think it seems solid.
How do you think about faction balance? In a 4-player game where there's self-regulating, oh, damn, Christina's about to win. How did that feel in your 2-player game?
That is a good question, because one of the things I think that did come up in the first game we played of this was something that I remember you pointing out after our first game, Kellen, which was, once you're down, and especially in a 2-player game, you don't necessarily feel like you can claw yourself back. And, in a 2-player game, because it's fairly zero-sum, if I'm just on the back foot, I'm probably not going to be able to counteract all of the enemy's forces and launch a counteroffense, right? And some of that could be exacerbated by balance, right? Like if I'm playing the long-range faction, or what have you, and the faction that the opponent is playing doesn't have any effective defense against range, then what are you going to do? I'm sure that is a problem, in as much as like any deck in Magic the Gathering has decks that it's good and bad against, I think what Imperium wants you to believe the solution is it's a deck construction game, build your deck to counter what the other opponent is doing. Is that a perfect solution?
Play it more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that the perfect solution for me?
Play more games of our game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whether that ends up being something I actually end up employing in the long run is unlikely. But yeah, no, so far, like even just with the precons as is, I'm sure there will be a little bit of, okay, I know the sorts of cards I just need to, like, to use a Magic the Gathering term, sideboard into my deck to counter this faction. And that will just come with experience, I guess.
Cool.
That's Imperium the Contention.
At 2 players.
At 2 players.
I'm helping you out, Neil.
Thank you very much.
You're burning the midnight oil, and I've got that noon.
It's been that noon
energy.
It's been a while since I've done this close to midnight.
Yeah. All right. Well, it is time to take you on a journey through Wonderland's War, which is a Kickstarter release from Skybound Games and Druid City Games, Skybound Tabletop, Skybound Entertainment. This is a review copy, and let's find out if they are going to be happy or sad about that decision. Wonderland's War is, in one sentence, if Quacks of Quedlinburg was a area control fighty game with asymmetric factions.
Doesn't sound terrible.
Yeah, I'm actually weirdly into that.
No, you stop right there and you're like, oh my God, this is fun. That sounds fun. Okay, so the theme here, Alice in Wonderland, except they're all fighting, right? The Cheshire Cat, Alice, the Mad Hatter, the Queen of Hearts, and I think the Jabberwock are the 5 factions in the game. Radically different powers. Honestly, in some ways, the asymmetry feels a little like Cthulhu Wars, where you are unlocking powers throughout the game. The game is divided into 2 phases. There is the Tea Party phase, where you are collecting things for your bag, you are upgrading your area control positions, and then there is a war phase, where you are resolving 5 rounds of area control. You repeat that 3 times, and the game ends. The Tea Party phase is pretty unique. You can select any card you want, but every time you lap around the track, you have to roll a die, and you're going to get more madness, which is the sort of bad thing that is going into your bag. But the idea that you can just keep going around and keep pushing it if you want to keep going a little bit madder is quite interesting. And the bonuses and benefits and upgrades are quite cool and fun and different. And then you get into the war phase, where you are using leaders. All right, you have your leader of your faction who exits the Tea Party to one of the areas. You have your supporters, which are meeples. You have your castles, which are area control points that just sort of start there. And you have you have Wonderlandians. Wonderlandians. There is a deck of Wonderlandians. Some of the Wonderlandians, they go into your bag, okay? You get 2 tokens, those Wonderlandians into the bag. Other Wonderlandians, they go direct onto the area control board. Do you get it? There are 2 types of Wonderlandians, okay? That is the most annoying word I have ever said, and I am excited to say it as annoying as I can. Wonderlandians, okay? Right into the bag, some onto the board. Great. That is the game. That's not the game. There's so much more. The pros here, okay? The fun, it's fun, right? It feels fun. It is fun. goofy powers. There are big moments. There are 3, 2, 1 reveal, right? As you're pushing your luck with your bag, there are groans. There is excitement. There is...
Are there moans?
There are moans. Oh, yes. Yes, great. You pull some madness out of your bag. You are discarding units from the area control. You got no more units. Well, you. You're out of this battle. Great. There is smart decision-making. Do I work to improve my bag, right? Or do I make my board presence more bust-proof? Or do I up my strength, right? It is bright. It is colorful. It is insane. It is an over-the-top Kickstarter product. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get out of the pros. Let's go to the cons. But let's move on to the cons.
I like the pros.
There are pros. No. Let me tell you, we had a fun time.
Okay,
we had a fun time with Wonderland's War. I played it with the perfect group. The Ameritrashy... well, okay, we're smart people, okay?
Oh, okay. You played it with your dumb friends.
Not the dumb friends. Thank you. Love you, Brandon. Okay, the cons. The cons, okay? Let me say this. I currently believe, and I did some research.
I love it. Let me just say, I cannot wait to hear the sentence. I cannot wait to hear the sentence.
I just want
to underline for our listeners that my level of excitement now to hear the next sentence. Go ahead.
I do not believe that I've ever seen a game, ever, that takes longer to set up and tear down than Wonderland's War. So much so that 2/3 of the game, I started strategizing on how to get rid of the game so that I did not have to put it back. Okay? I gave it away to Brandon. He was excited about it, and he had to put it away. Literally insanity. Tokens, ally tokens, right? So you have the Quacks of Quedlinburg, like there are 5 different allies, right? There are weak and strong versions of each ally, but depending on the game, A, B, C, D, those have different powers per game, similar to Quacks of Quedlinburg. The Wonderlandians, right? Those are like unique figures and 2 chips per figure. There are like 30 of those in this deck. There are just startup, setup, madness. Literally, the board, we had a board game table, okay? And we had, the recessed board game table. It barely fit. Wow. And this is not the deluxe version. This is not the Kickstarter version. I believe this is the retail version. We were thinking about playing 5 players. Thank God we did not play 5 players. It has got everything in the kitchen sink, right? This game is sort of like they started with this rock-solid idea. Quacks of Quedlinburg, area control. Everyone's having fun. And they put up a whiteboard. They said, say things that you think are fun. And they added it to the game. Betting. Okay, you're not in the battle. You get to bet on the battle. Oh, that's fun, right? But that adds 4 cards per player, right? And those 4 cards are literally themed for you, and so you have to find those. It's literally the Wonderlandians, right? It's insane. You don't need them. Every single thing, right? And this is the okay. The core fun, right, is building the best, most viable bag. Okay. Right. But the first rule of bag building, okay, write this down. Never forget the bag in a bag builder, okay? That's a rule, okay? That's a universal design rule. And I think that they forgot about the bag, okay, in this bag builder because they're like, well, is a bag fun enough on its own? I don't know. Let's add 700 other things. I don't know how to end the review, right? This is a review. It was a very fun time, okay? It's all the factions are doing fun, cool, right? Normally when you pick a card in the Tea Party, it gives you a benefit. It gives you a little upgrade, and then it lets you put meeples in one location, okay? But not me. I'm the Queen of Hearts. As many locations as I want to. Battles are happening wherever I want. The Jabberwocky, he's poisoning cards, right? He's reserving them. So if he wants them, oh, no problem. He can have his own poison, but if you take them, extra madness for your bag, right? Alice, she's not normally from Wonderland. She's going counterclockwise around the board.
Wow.
And you're like, what? So she's getting cards in a different order and has better, you're all kind of incrementing so you don't have to roll the madness die and get more madness in your bag. She's going backwards, right? Cool things are happening. Okay, and I don't know all the cool things that were happening on the Cheshire Cats board, on the Mad Hatter's board, because I was not playing those factions. I was the Queen of Hearts, okay? And it was fun. I really like it. Here's the thing. if you set this game up, okay, at a convention, and you said, Board Game Barrage, go play Wonderland's War, I really think we would have fun.
Yeah.
I really think it would be, like, fun. I really do. And then as long as we don't have to put it away. Really. As long as we don't have to do the setup. It ran too long as well. It needs more development time, and it would be really good. The core is really...
Yeah. That's such a shame. My immediate question is kind of like, is the setup stuff solvable? Is there a way you could sort the components? Not to say that inserts should solve this problem, but like, is there like some relatively easy setup solution that you could see fixing this?
No. I mean, I personally don't think so.
Yeah.
But maybe. It's like I spent at least an hour and a half learning and punching all the chips, and then we started setting it up, and it was at least 2 people for at least a half an hour. Like literally just getting out all of the stuff and seating the board, and it took up literally the entire board game table, right? One of those big board game tables for a 4-player game. You've got 5 to 7 decks of cards. You've got, again, these allies, right, which come in 2 forms, but all the chips look the same, except some have 1 on them and some have 3 on them, the weak and strong versions.
Sure.
You've got references. You've got betting cards. I was like flummoxed. I am flummoxed, flabbergasted. I don't know what the difference is between those 2 words, but I was both of those words playing Wonderland's War.
So how long does this game take? And before you answer, I'm sort of torn as to what I want to hear back from you, because you're saying it's a fun game, right? And you're saying it's all this setup and teardown. Part of me feels like I want you to say that this was like a 3-hour game. Because
it was.
It was. Okay. So does that mitigate the time it took to set up and tear down? Because, for example, Cthulhu Wars isn't crazy setup or tear down, but there is some setup and tear down to it. But I feel like it's a little bit okay because it's an epic experience. Is there any sort of balance there for Wonderland's War?
Yeah. So I don't think that Wonderland's War is an epic experience.
I see. Okay.
Like the board should be half as large.
Right.
Like full stop, half. Like cut it in half. And you probably could. There's a lot of art. There's art everywhere. And one other player commented that they loved the art style, loved the box, but that by the end of the game, their eyes were burning. Literally about 2/3 of the way through the game. My eyes kind of hurt looking at everything that's happening here. Yeah, I think it's just all too much for the core of the game. Like, it doesn't have the strategic depth of Cthulhu Wars, like full stop. There's no way. It's like, if we could bust through this in 90 minutes, it would be amazing, right? With the setup and teardown removed. Like, I really thought it was fun. I really enjoyed the jostling, and there's more nuance to what I'm talking about, right? Which is like, supporters don't contribute combat strength to a battle. They literally just help prevent you from busting, because if you lose too many units, like, you're out. And it's like, there's a difference between busting and like running out of madness. There's fun happening. It's just sort of like, it's all additive. They just kept adding, and I don't know. I could not keep it. I could not. I literally could not. I couldn't. And again, that's a Kellen thing, because other people, more is more, and like the idea, the audacious, they love that, and I don't. I was just like, dear God, where is Reiner Knizia, and can he please take this away for 2 years and come back with what I want out of it.
Yeah. Right. Interesting.
But again, Quacks at Quedlinburg, area control fighty game,
It's a smart idea.
Crazy art, yeah. Right.
Yeah, very lovely art. That is what I think about Wonderland's War. We took a trip to the wonderful Lewis Carroll world, and I don't know if I made it out alive. Mark, it is your turn to share with us how you feel about Gaunt, or Gentes, whichever you prefer. And I'm curious, which do you prefer?
So I go with Gentes, but I've heard
perfect.
None of the options.
Hentai. Yeah.
Gentes. I'm going to go with Gentes. But Kellen, you said that you looked it up and the Latin is actually what, like Gaunt?
It's like a word in multiple languages, so I think a lot of the videos are, But the way you're saying it means pervert in Japanese, so I just want to be super clear.
Gentes is?
Well, it's very close.
Okay, so I'm definitely going with that in that case. But it's funny. We're going to go from Wonderland's War, where the art is so vivid that it makes your eyes burn, to Gentes, which is like a throwback to old school Euro, gray, brown, a lot of earth tone colors. So a little bit of a switching of gears. So this is a game that I've played from Stefan Rithaus. I played this years ago. He also designed Arkwright, which I've owned for many years and I'm yet to play, but is probably, I think, in my top 10 games that I've owned but yet to play. Arkwright is. He also designed Mountain Goats. So between Arkwright and Mountain Goats, boy, do you have two extremes of the spectrum. Interestingly, I'd say Gentes falls right smack dab in the middle of that spectrum, right down the middle. Gentes is sort of a Civ building game. I mean, it is a Civ building game, but ever since the great Tapestry debate of 2019, I can't remember precisely what makes a Civ game a Civ game. There isn't any sort of tech tree or real asymmetric advancement in that respect, so it's probably, I'd say, best to describe it as a Civ building game, more in theme than in mechanisms, maybe. So what you're doing in Gentes is building your civilization through a set of, not really worker placement, but much closer to like a souped-up action point system. Have either of you played Gentes, first of all?
Nah. It's actually one that I've had for a little while and not gone around to.
I see. Kellen, have you played Gentes?
I have not played this game.
Okay. The way it works is that there are a number of tiles on the board which will allow you to do a number of things like build cities on the map, buy cards from an array which represent the buildings, which give you some passive abilities but actually do the bulk of the scoring, building these buildings does. There are other spots where you can actually build the buildings from your hand of cards to your tableau, and then another set of tiles which will allow you to recruit different kinds of citizens, which are more or less the currency of the game when it comes to building a building. So, for example, if you want to build a marketplace, say, you might need to have at least one noble in your civilization and 3 merchants. And as long as you've recruited at least one noble and 3 merchants, you can build the building. That's sort of how you pay for the buildings. So if you want to take one of these actions, you take the tile that's associated with the action. And when you take the tile, you therefore keep anybody else from taking the tile. You pay an amount of gold associated with the action. And then you take the tile and place it on your time track on your board. So it takes up 1 spot on your time track. You also take an amount of time units, which are also played on your track. So the action might cost 1 time unit, or 2 time units, or 3 time units. And here's where the main clever twist on action points comes from. So you only have a certain number of time spots available on your board, and once you fill up the time spots, you're done for that round. And for example, you say you take an action that costs 2 time units. You can spread them out so that each time unit takes up 1 spot on your board, or you can double them up so that both units just take up 1 spot on your board, therefore giving you potentially more actions that round. But if you choose to double up any spot, then when you reset your board for the next round, you leave one of the time units on the board, filling up a spot in the next round. So in effect, you can choose to pay all your time in this round, in the current round, or spread it out across 2 rounds. So that's the biggest hook with Gentes. The rest is pretty standard midweight Euro stuff where you're building buildings for points. If the buildings have matching symbols, you get points. You can build sort of an infrastructure with these cities to give you resources from round to round, all that kind of stuff, all that sort of like down the middle Euro stuff. I thought Gentes was an absolutely solid game, and I played again. I just don't think that sheen of this being a quote-unquote time track system rather than what it is, which is sort of an action point system with this somewhat interesting sort of loaning system where you can borrow action points from the future to use them now. I don't know if that was enough to make it seem like a special game where I'd want to play it again or request it in the future. It's totally solid. It's completely built soundly. It's totally fine. If you want a midweight Euro game with a couple interesting takes on action point systems, then I'd recommend it. I just don't know if it's anything that I would classify as remarkable.
Is this a case of a game that could have benefited from a different theme?
Probably. I think that the civilization theme isn't really necessary. I mean, it does help with the idea of it being time because this is like over time you're building a civilization. But really, you're adding cards to your tableau, you're playing them out. It wouldn't, I don't think, take very much to move this into something else. But you wouldn't want to use this action point system, this borrowing action point system, to be like a economic thing because that might be a little too dry. Like if it was just purely a loan system. But that being said, I don't know how the borrowing time for now for the future works thematically with a Civ game. Like you're making your workers work double time now and then giving them a break. And it doesn't hold up thematically either. So I don't know. And I'm sort of torn by how it works in terms of the look of the game because part of me likes the old brown Euro sort of thing, but I don't know. It's a little like too much there. I don't know. When I think of this game, one of the words, and I've used it in describing it, is sheen. It has this sheen of being an old Euro. It has this sheen of this action point system being especially novel when I don't think it necessarily is. It's fundamentally totally sound, and it probably doesn't help that I played the deluxified version, which is more sheen, but it just has all this like accoutrement on the outside that makes it feel like it's trying to be something that I don't think it is. It's perfectly respectable. I just don't know if it's like this like grand experience or grand game necessarily.
Card combos, are they cool?
Not especially. The card combos consist of like, hey, you're going to play a building. It's going to have perhaps multiple symbols on it. When you play another building in the future that has that symbol, you get a point.
I thought I'd seen this on lists of games that had like fun card combos, but I may be mistaken entirely. And interactivity report. Give us the interactivity report.
Hi, this is Mark with your weekly interactivity report. This time we're covering Gaunt from Stefan Risthaus. No, the interactivity is on the good side of Euro. It's like sort of like Agricola-esque. It's like it's that level, but it's fine. You definitely are taking spots that people want, and so there is like a, hey, do you want to spend one of my turns to lock up first player for the next round? There is some of that consideration. It's not completely cutthroat, but it definitely is something to think about.
I can't help but think that if you just, and I feel like this is like a Kellen criticism more often than not, that if you would just like turn up the dials on like a lot of what you're saying and mechanically, you get closer to something like a Glory to Rome, where everything just feels a little bit more exciting, like everything like combos in a way that, and that has a similarly dry theme, but everything about it mechanically just screams like, oh man, I'm doing something crazy, whereas it doesn't sound like that comes across in Gentes at all.
Yeah, and maybe I'll step back a second and just talk again about the card combos. I still will reiterate that I don't think the card combos are especially amazing, but there is like a thing where you build a building, in addition to these like little points you can get, and that can be a big way to score. If you build like 10 buildings with the same symbol, you get a bunch of points. But the buildings will often also give you like a type of citizen, and there is a comboing there, but it's like, you know, I build this building to get this citizen, which makes me able to build another building in the future. It's some comboing, but it's not anywhere near the scale of like Glory to Rome or Innovation. Nothing anywhere approaching that. It's much more mild. It's fun when it kicks off, but you're never going to be like, wow, look at what I'm going to do, boom, 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 and now I'm like, you know, king of the world. Nothing like that.
I do think there is a market for what you've described as like a solid Euro. But it's like damning with faint praise, I think is the phrase. When someone uses the sentence solid Euro or the phrase, I kind of go, oh, okay. You know, the accountants and the software engineers can go play this in the corner of the board game convention, and we'll all be having fun somewhere else.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but I will say that that's exactly sort of what I feel about this game. Like, I would never turn it down. It doesn't go too long. It's fine. It's totally fine. I cannot imagine this is anybody's favorite game. Like, it's completely fine, but it's not going to be wowing anybody, I don't think.
And if anyone is wondering, that last sentence that I said was a direct quote from Mark Basada.
Prior to recording.
Yeah, prior to recording, he sent me that line. So please send all hate mail to him at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. Thank you, Mark, for your coverage of Gaunt with the interactivity report. We wanted to put the call out for any questions that you have for us, be those hot questions about board games or something that you've been thinking about that you think we should cover on the Board Game Barrage podcast. Please reach out to us. You can do that on email at boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. You can join the Discord and you can PM us, send us a message. You can post in the podcast channel. You can ask questions of the entire community. Ask for recommendations. You know, I love recommendations. Just an open call for things that you'd love for us to cover on the Board Game Barrage podcast, or questions that you have that we can answer in a future episode. We want Neelan to say, hot question.
Much better than that.
If you don't send... That was rude. I gave it a go. I gave it a real try, and you just cut people down. That's Neelan for you. That's the orange tank.
That's that 11 p.m. energy right there.
Yeah. All right, let us move on to our topic today, which is the return of the fantasy draft. We are going to be fighting We are going to be drafting in a snake draft order. We are building a mini collection of games in the Board Game Geek numbers 501 to 600. We are getting to 5 games. You are voting for them. Everybody knows the rules. Why don't we just get right to it? Did we notice anything interesting in this section of 501 to 600?
I think you get a real hodgepodge of games here. I think there are some real good ones, along with games that I either thought were just okay or don't really have any interest in playing. I think you get valleys and peaks here, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's some surprisingly, really solid stuff here. I mean, I already have this is my top 10 list of the stuff that's on here that I have in front of me, and they're all great games that I want or have.
So what they're revealing to you is that they're both tryhards, which means they've done preparation work to try to win this.
Okay, I did a total of 2 minutes of preparation as we were recording the episode, I'll have you know. And you are the person who just admitted, I think on the last episode or the episode before, that the only reason you looked at our listener top lists is in order to try to win these. So I think
that
Lady Duff protests too much.
I think I am being misquoted. I think that we need to put you right back into the sin zone, along with Tom, who misquoted me over and over again on Dune. What do you guys think is happening here? Insert the sin zone. Insert this. It's Mark. Here we go. Who is starting us? Yes. No. I did notice that it seems a little less Euro. Okay. For whatever reason, it's more eclectic, right?
Yeah.
The 100 to 300, I'm like, there's Euro, fun game, Euro, fun game. And here it's just way more all over the place, which is fun. I think it'll make for an interesting list. I am curious what you guys are drafting, and I'm struggling because there are things that I really like personally, but I don't think are going to win me the big prize.
Right.
All right. The order for this list has been decided off air, and we are going with Neelan, Kellen, Mark, NKM is the acronym, and Neelan has the first pick, but then he doesn't get to pick again till number 6.
Yeah.
Do you know how snake drafts work, you idiot? Public service announcement. Astute listeners of the Fantasy Draft Series may see some titles from previous lists from the 400 to 500 also be included here on the 501 to 600 list, and that's because the ratings move so often. Board Game Geek is incentivized to move the ratings around so that we talk about them. And so you may see some crossover here. This is as the time of recording, which, as you know, is midnight in South Africa.
Yes.
So that'll help keep you referenced as to when this was recorded. So it is up to date. Everything is to par. This is an official snake draft, starting with Neelan, 501 to 600.
All those Knizia games that we dragged down have to go somewhere. So
here we go.
So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if I'm just misremembering, but it feels like it's been a long time since I've been in this first slot, which means I have to pick first, but I don't get to pick again until 6th. But I do think there is one game that is jumping out to me as the first pick. Well, there's maybe a couple. I'm going to go with this one for a couple of reasons, not least of all because it's a game I love a lot. It's also a game that is very hard to get, which I think makes it very desirable, and that is Quantum. Quantum, an excellent semi-abstract space fighty game where you have dice that represent ships of different classes. You can have your zippy little ships and your big heavy battleships that move slower, and you're trying to just take control of planets. But what really spices this up are these powers that you can draft at various points in the game. So you start to build your ships to start to feel a little bit more asymmetric to other players, giving yourself these unique, funky powers. And it just all accelerates to a game where you can very quickly see, oh, this person is 1 point away from the win. Let's stop that player from trying to win. But if they've set themselves up correctly, they're able to grab the win before anyone's able to stop them. Very, very cool game. Very easy to teach. I love this. This is the delight. And if you've not played it before, excellent version of it on Board Game Arena. That is, I think, going to be my number 1 pick is Quantum.
This is high on lists of people who have similar tastes to me in board games, but for whatever reason, I moved on from Quantum. it works in the same way that Soul works. I think it's for like hardcore sci-fi gamers, but then the like powers in it are really pretty wacky and can be quite random and swingy in a way that just doesn't jive for me for whatever reason. So ergo, this is a 2 out of 10 pick or a D-. Draft grade analysis coming right from me. That makes me, huh?
Uh-huh.
Jeez. I like almost have no opinion here. Very interesting.
Yeah, I have a hard time figuring out what my like number one is as well.
Yeah, like what's gonna pop here. All right. My number one pick is a game with a colon in it, unfortunately. As everyone knows, I hate colons. I think that all good lists need to be anchored by a heavier, very interactive game, which is why I am choosing the 2021 re-release of Kemet, Blood and Sand as my first pick. I find that when we were talking about fighty dudes on a map games, meeples on a plane, woman in the water games, we have like Inish, Cthulhu Wars, Blood Rage, the Eric Lang stuff, and Kemet. It's always mentioned, right? And this is a 2021 version of Kemet where they have streamlined the rules. They have taken where Kemet was in its 1.5 iteration and sort of just tightened everything up from what I understand. The components were upgraded for Kemet, Blood and Sand. The board was upgraded. I really like the look of the new board. I actually have not played Kemet, Blood and Sand. Neelan, Kemet is a favorite of yours. Have you tried Blood and Sand?
I haven't actually, no. Largely because I have pretty much everything from the original, so like it's not appealed to me in that same way. But yeah, no, I would like to. I'm intrigued to see if I like the way it looks more than the original.
Yeah, I think that everyone ultimately resolves on like 2 or 3 of these style of games that they play, but I do feel like Kemet ends up in that list for more people than not, and it is a fantastic representation of the genre. My first pick, Kemet, Blood and Sand. Was that anywhere near anyone's list? Like, that's the thing here. It could have been like literally not on. Okay.
Those were like my top toss-ups for number one pick.
Interesting. Okay.
It was certainly on my short list. Yeah, definitely.
It's just funny how
that's the
wild
last thing you want. The last thing you want is to draft something and other people not care at all. Like,
yeah.
There are a lot of games that speak to me on this list for sure, but I want to draft games that I think you guys will, if you get a chance to, before maybe taking some of my personal favorites. That's always my biggest dilemma, is to take the game that I like the most versus games that are opportunity picks before I think they might go, or that I think will appeal to listeners. I think I'm going to, as I generally do, maybe do a sort of mix of both. I'm going to take my favorite, and as a sort of an ode to the person who's been wronged the most by the BGG rankings, Mr. Knizia himself, the doctor himself, I'm going to take my favorite of the doctor's games on this list. I'm going to go with Through the Desert here.
I think that's good.
Okay, I feel like you were lying when you said
We're very happy that you selected Through the Desert.
There's Taj Mahal as well. I'm just not a big fan of Taj Mahal. There's also High Society, which I considered, but I think of the 3 Knizia games, I think there are only 3 Knizia games here. Through the Desert is by far my favorite, and it just appeals to me on that, it's been likened to Go. It's where you're building sort of routes and you want to cut people off and have your own sections. I love the tempo thing. It's done again in Blue Lagoon, adding some more aspects to it. But Through the Desert is sort of the stripped-down version. And I always enjoy my games Through the Desert for the simplicity of it, for the, again, tempo considerations and the timing considerations. So I'm going to go with Through the Desert as my first pick. And now I get this first pick of the second round.
So the other Knizia game, Medici.
Is it on this list? I didn't see it.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not saying Medici is better than Through the Desert. I think Through the Desert is probably more universally liked, but
yeah, and I would take it over Medici as well. I think of the
you
four,
have to.
Right.
There's only one rule of this, which is that you can't go back.
No trade backs, yeah. No, but certainly of the 4 Knizia games, by far my favorite is Through the Desert, for sure. For my first pick of the second round, okay, I'm going to go with the game that I would prefer of these. My favorite, I think, of these.
Francis Drake.
Francis Drake is up there.
Oh, it's not? Is that in your top, 10?
No, it was. It's gone down. Yeah. It's gone down.
I see.
And I'm pretty sure that it's under the game I'm picking now, which is going to be PAX Renaissance.
Yeah.
this is one of my favorite PAX games. Again, a game chock full of history, chock full of flavor text that I love reading. There's something about it. Thematically, you're running one of the families during the Renaissance. The idea that you can influence the religious powers and influence these global things and building like trade routes and recruiting these people to your side that are historic people, and you've got, again, these cards that are filled with flavor text that I just love. It's like, I don't know, I'm a kind of guy who, when I'm working on something, I love having like some history doc on my second screen and just like absorbing that information through osmosis and just playing PAX Renaissance. I don't mind somebody being a turn turtle and taking a long time, because I'll just read these cards and think about these people throughout history, and I just love that aspect of it. So I'm going with PAX Ren for my first pick of the second round.
Snakes, as they go one way, then they come back. Ergo, I am up with my second pick. And I am excited. And I think I might be reaching. They call a reach, right? When you pick something maybe before you should. But I need it anchored on my list. Who is popping right now? Who is everyone talking? One, Paolo Mori, with his fantastic two-player game, Blitzkrieg World War II in 20 minutes. Now, Paolo Mori is hot, right? People can't get enough of him, right? They're talking about the not a remake Libertalia Winds of Galecrest, which is not a remake, not a re-release, all new. Blitzkrieg is a fantastic two-player game that is getting a lot of love. There is a new game in the same line called Caesar that is also getting love right now, but Blitzkrieg came first. This is Paolo Mori's take on a two-player filler game that you can set up in like 60 seconds, a push and a pull system where you are just fighting it out with a lot of depth to it. I feel like any player's board game collection would be anchored by a two-player game like Blitzkrieg. I look forward to this every time I play it. It's very simple, right? You're drawing tiles, you place. It's got everything you need for that perfect battle line, Arboretum-esque game, but just a little more here. And one that I think will be in many people's collections for a long time. I'm super excited to pick Blitzkrieg second on my list.
The first game that has been picked that was not on my short list. I feel like this is a Paxton Lynch level pick. That's a
shush. Take that back, sir. No, so a lot of love for this, right? Shut up and sit down, reviewed it. I think it's good. I think it's quite good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear you. There are a couple other ones that I'm worried about, but yeah, PAX Renaissance, great. Good job.
I think my second pick is actually going to be the one that I'm surprised Kellen didn't take, because we often talk about hitting the niche, and I think PAX Renaissance was the right first pick before this, but I know Kellen is a fan of PAX Porfiriana especially. I think that's what I'm going to go with. I love PAX games. Everyone knows this. Can't stop talking about them. Heavy tableau card games. Absolutely in my wheelhouse, and I share our audience's enthusiasm for the genre. And thus would like to present PAX Porfiriana as the next best pick on this list for something that perhaps could not be more different than that. Is another one that's in my top 50. Maybe another one that's actually going to upset Kellen a little bit. Coloretto is jumping out at me as a game that is so perfect in exactly the opposite end of the spectrum. The light card game that you can take anywhere, where we're having a breezy tournament of this right now on Board Game Arena as we speak, which hopefully means that I think a lot of people are coming to love it as much as I do. That is going to be my pick number 3, Coloretto.
So it's like there's multiple layers to this, right? PAX games have very dedicated fans, but that is a sub-niche. But the person who's more likely to vote, like if you actually got a listener sample of all of the listeners who listen to the Board Game Barrage podcast, I don't think a PAX game would help you in this at all. But if you add the filter of people who listen to Board Game Barrage podcast and are willing to vote in the online poll, which you can get to at BoardGameBarrage.com/draft if you want to vote on this, but wait till the end or you're going to get spoilers. I do think is a good pick. It's funny, I would love to go back now and see if a PAX game had helped or hurt a list, that we've done, because I don't think there's no PAX games in the listener top 20, if I recall.
I think that's
correctly.
Correct. Except PAX Premier, I believe.
PAX Premier, yeah.
Oh, PAX Premier is in it?
I think so, or just missed it. One of the two.
It is. No, I think it is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. Oh, and I have to pick again. It's so hard to know how to weight Cult of the New, right? Because there's a couple of newbies here that have that sort of popping power, but I don't know, you can't trust the new. You can't trust it. It's hard to know what to go with, but I feel like it's rock solid. I feel like it cannot be beat. That game is 2014's Camel Up. It's just a classic. It's like a Downforce came out, all these new racing betting games come out, and they're never better than Camel Up or Camel Cup, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This game has delightful meeples, a delightful contraption where dice are coming out of the pyramid. This is like a family favorite of mine. I feel like if we're drafting a collection of 5 games that you just need, Camel Up would be like, it's got a lot for what you're getting. It's got a lot of table presence. Absolutely love Camel Up. Happy to have it here in the 3rd slot on my list.
If only it was Camel Up cards, I think you would lock it up there.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. You're the only person who's ever rated that game on BoardGameGeek. So,
okay, my 3rd pick. I had 2 games locked up here, but I'm starting to waver a little bit. But okay, I'm just going to go with the first one here. I'm going to go with shout out to the coin fans in the audience, and I'm going to go Cuba Libre, which I think is the most approachable of the coin games. If you're a fan of Root, you should vote for me because Cuba Libre is also like Root. It's an asymmetric multi-faction game.
It's also Root. Yeah, this is a slash. It's Cuba Libre and Root.
/ Root. Yeah,
that's perfect. Yeah,
basically the same game. Basically the same game. And look, if you don't know about Cuba Libre and you're a fan of Root, look up Cuba Libre and just imagine instead of Fidel Castro, you've got like a gopher or something. It's the same sort of deal. Anyhow, for my first pick of the 4th round, I'm gonna go with the game that I think is my favorite of the remaining sort of midweight, lightweight games here. I'm going to go with Rosenberg. I'm going with Nova Luna. I think this is one of my favorite of recent releases. Tile laying, spatial system with also the timing mechanism from Patchwork when it comes to drafting tiles and placing them on your board. I really like Nova Luna a lot. So I think I got a couple of heavy games in a row here with Pax Friend and Cuba Libre. And I think Nova Luna is a nice, refreshing change of pace there. So I'm going to go Nova Luna.
Nova Luna is a really good one. Mm-hmm. Absolutely solid. Though I feel like he keeps iterating on that system and he's going to get somewhere better at some point, and then there's going to be no more Nova Luna. My list is missing that Euro game, and I can't find it. I can't find it in the list, and I'm looking through the list, and I'm looking at all these games that are left, and I'm like, my God, which is the boring Euro game that's going to bring my list up? Right? It's going to make it pop for those people. I'm like, okay, I looked at the text list. Now I'm looking at the list of pictures because I'm like, okay, maybe this will spark something. I can't find it. Can I phone a friend? Neil, and what should I pick?
Ooh, I actually think I know the answer to this. But I'm a little bit scared of it. And it's maybe not quite what you mean, but I think it fills the gap.
But you don't want to share it.
I don't want to share it.
I'll give you the answer. It's Shadows of Brimstone, Swamps of Death.
Uh-huh. You are trying to trick me.
No. Okay, I'll be serious. It's Smash Up Awesome Level 9000. That's the one.
Oh, my.
So I'm sorry for trying to trick you earlier.
Yeah.
What I think you should do is you should just pull a Neil in and there's exit the game here. It's the Pharaoh's Tomb, but I think you should just go with all of them.
Okay, I cannot find what I am looking for, so I will select the new hotness, a game that people are very excited about, and that is the Arcane Wonders game Furnace. So this is an engine-building game that I believe Mark and Neelan have played, but I have not yet had a chance to. It has a lovely cover. I think that this is right up my wheelhouse. A fun market manipulating the industrial empires engine builder. I'm not making it sound fun. Mark or Neelan make it sound fun, so people will vote for me.
I cannot make it sound fun because I think it's super overrated. I think it's a great pick. I honestly think it's a great pick. I just think the game is fairly boring. frankly. But I think it's a great pick.
I like Furnace.
Don't let he's lying.
Furnace probably would have been my 5th pick if you had not picked it.
Yeah.
I think it's solid. And I think it's obviously moving up the charts in a way that is good for you.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it'll,
certainly hot. Yeah.
I think it'll continue to move up.
Yeah.
That would be my guess for a little while at least. That is my 4th pick, Furnace.
So I'm going to be coming in here with my 4th and 5th picks. And the game, I think, sort of, it's not really a midweight Euro, but it sort of fills the niche that Kellen, I think, was targeting, which is that it's a medium weight dry game.
I told you that in confidence, Neil.
A medium weight, pretty dry game, but one I think is mechanically solid. One of my most surprising, I would say, deck builders that I played recently, and that is Imperium Classics. I think the thing that works for me about Imperium Classics so much is it does have that feeling of, okay, this is slightly heavier than your average deck builder, but it's not an incredibly heavy game. It's slightly above medium, I guess. But it feels like Euro-y. It feels like it's multiplayer solitaire type game, but one that feels really good. Building up your civilization, especially because each of the civilizations is asymmetric and the way that they interact with the deck building system is unique, is really, really clever. And also, it's a much loved game in the solo community. I've not played it like that, but I've heard really good things about it as a solo game. Very cool game.
As we all know, Neelan, being a Neelan, picked this because he assumed that he also got Imperium Legends.
Totally.
I implore the listeners not to count Imperium Legends. He's only selecting Imperium Classics. Don't let Neelan be a Neelan and get all the games.
I will instantly respond to that by saying I have not touched Imperial Legends. So my impressions of this are based purely...
but when you drafted all the exit games, have you played all the exit games, Neelan?
Yes.
Thank you, Mark. Someone speaking reason for
That's
once.
right.
Finally.
That's right.
Imperium Classics stands alone as a great game, but you can also combine it with Imperium Legends. If you buy both, you can mix them together, all the options, all in one box. Fantastic. That is my 4th pick, Imperium Classics. And then 5th is hard. I really would have picked Furnace here, and I think that Kellen has left me with a pick that I'm kind of shaky about, but I think has also kind of rocketed up, not recently so much, but I think that there is a lot of love out there for Fort by later games. This has the Kyle Ferris art that we all love from Root, but in a way that is a little bit more playful, a little bit spunky, kind of just like kids having fun in their tree houses and their tree forts, and it has a very vibey style to it. It is a re-implementation of SPQF, a very weird little card game that doesn't quite feel like anything out there. That is Fort, my pick 5.
I agree with everything Neelan has said. Fort was on my short list. I just want to reiterate, though, he hearkened to Roots. I just want to reiterate that if you want Roots, Cuba Libre is way more close to Fort.
I adore Fort and Spakoof, but I feel like the love for this is sort of like its leader games because it's such a weird game.
Yeah.
Like it's not as mass as some of the other games we've picked. But yeah, good pick. Not on my short list. I don't know that there's any world where I would have gotten
I certainly do worry about it, but yeah,
it's a quirk. Like having a quirk, it's like 4 out of 5 of the family members you like, then there's the weird one that you sometimes want to talk to. I'm surprised that you did not pick Tuluva.
Yeah, I thought about that. A game that recently entered my top 50. I could have seen that.
It's an old burn,
Yeah.
I guess. It's an old burn. That's the hard thing, right? It's like, do you pick these sort of classics that are tried and true? I actually have a feeling that these lists end up being more aspirational, games that people want to play, as opposed to their current collection. So if you went super low, like Time's Up, Coloretto, I feel like people would all have those games and play those games, but they would not select that as their list. Ergo, I am going aspirational. I'm going aspirational for myself. There is a 4X game on this list that I have always wanted to play. This is closer to in the genre of like the PAX set of games in terms of complexities.
Oh my God. Are you going to go with...
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah.
Space Empires 4X.
Wow. Okay.
I have always wanted to play this. It is the 4X game that all other 4X games are compared to. It is published by GMT, right? So this is your war game publisher. This is anyone who knows PAX has heard of Space Empires 4X, Mark, right?
Yes.
Is that
yes, I would agree with that.
I'm not saying they've played it, right? Because I have not played it.
Right.
But anytime a new one comes out, right, the crowd that really likes 4X goes here. This is a wild card throw. This is my Hail Mary. I do not think I currently have the strongest list, and I need something like this for it. I desperately want to try this, especially because the playtime is supposedly like not as crazy as many of the other games in the genre. Yeah, Mark, have you played this game?
I have not. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't this on BGA?
If it's on BGA, it's play right now.
Yeah, we should try that.
You can't believe I went here, huh?
I cannot
That's what I
believe
like
you went
to
here.
do.
So a couple of our friends, I know Dan and someone else, try to play this on BGA by clunding it. Which, for those who are not familiar, clunding is a term that is sprung out of our Discord, where you try to learn a game just by playing it, just diving right in. Space Empires 4X strikes me as like the anti-clunding game, and based on Dan's report of his play of it, that proved to be correct. But yeah, this is a GMT-ass GMT game. Like, this is GMT.
Yeah, you guys are pansying around with
you went hard. Look, you went hard.
Porfiriana, Renaissance. I go hard.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, when somebody shoots a 3-pointer from the halfway line, like, you gotta applaud it. That's a shot right there. You took your shot for sure. Wow, if we all played Space Empires 4X and reported back on it, that would be crazy. Space Empires. Okay.
It looks cool. What do you mean? That's not crazy.
No,
this is aspirational.
Look,
you play Kemet,
Space
you get
Empires
excited.
4X is like the epitome of aspirational for me. Like, this game is like crazy. Like, yes.
Yeah, so
total
you're saying,
aspirational.
can I lock in your vote? Will you vote for me
am I going
now?
to vote for, of these picks so far of the fifth round, am I going to go Fort or am I going to go Space Empires 4X? I'm going to go Space Empires 4X for sure.
Yeah, see, there it is.
Okay, look, yeah,
Listen,
I'm
people,
not arguing it out. Yeah.
Great. All right, now make your last pick, and let's go out with that as the final thought, right? That people are thinking,
Right,
wow,
right.
I want to try Space Empires 4X.
So I'm just going to say my game real quick, and then we'll just end it.
Yeah, you've got like 3 more words, I'd say.
Sure.
My pick, and then the pick.
Well, if I've got 3 words, then I think 2 of them are going to be the title of this game. But I'm torn here between a couple of games. I'm just going to list them real quick. Francis Drake, obviously, is a game that was really high on my top 50 list. It's dropped a little bit. I just think it's too obscure, although I think it's a great game. I think it's too obscure. Jamaica, I think, is a great family-weight game that I was thinking about. Same with Tobago, but again, obscure and hard to get in the U.S. Las Vegas, hometown, also, I think, a really good game. Dice Throne is a game that I was considering because for some reason, when I had Dice Throne on my 4-trade list, people went crazy asking me to trade it for it.
Yeah. I would have done Dice Throne if not for already having Blitzkrieg as the 2-player.
I just didn't really like my play of it. And then finally, Airline and Sea is a game I considered as well. But I think I'm going to go with what I think is the most tried and true game on this list. It's dropped a bit, but I think at some point it's on the top 100. And it's a game that I really like. I think it's one of the first brutal Euro games where it's really fighty, and that is Carson City.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Carson City is an old Euro, but a really, really fighty one where you're really fighting over worker placement spaces and you're building map and you're blocking people off. It's got really asymmetric powers where you can draft a character from round to round and have their ability for that round, so you can try and sample different types of characters throughout the game. It's even got like a dual aspect where you can fight somebody over a spot and roll dice and use these gun tokens that you've acquired. So it's got that like flavor of the Old West that I think comes through. So yeah, I'm going to wrap it up with Carson City. So we'll go around and go over our list one more time.
Yeah.
Yes, so I guess Neelan, take us home. Tell us your 5 games.
So my list is Quantum, Pax Porfiriana, Coloretto, Imperium Classics, and Fort.
My list is Kemet, Blood and Sand, Blitzkrieg, Camel Up, Furnace, and Space Empires 4X. Just a little note here, they both picked Eklund games. So if you want to deal with a problematic designer, go ahead and vote for Neelan or Mark. But if you want to stay clean and pure, maybe you consider my list.
That is a low blow. And then finally, I picked Through the Desert by Dr. Reiner Knizia, impeccable, unassailable in the board game community. PAX Renaissance, Cuba Libre, which is also sort of like Root, I would say, Nova Luna, and Carson City.
So that is going to do it. Go ahead and head to BoardGameBarrage.com/draft. Put in your vote for the set of 5 games that you like best. We don't judge how you vote however you want. Aspirational. If you could only have these 5 games, it doesn't matter to us how you vote. It only matters that you vote. One of you will win a $50 gift card to the online board game retailer of your choice. Thank you so much for supporting the show, and we hope you enjoyed this draft episode. And may you all vote for me, Kellen, the Red Tank, based on how much you love Kemet and Space Empires 4X, how much you want to try Space Empires 4X. Thank you to Heart Society Music for their song, What's on Your Mind, Kid, which is the intro and outro music for our podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can rate us on iTunes, Spotify, 5 stars, please. You can send us an email, boardgamebarrage@gmail.com. You can bug us at Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. You can talk to us in our Facebook community. You can talk to us on our Board Game Geek Guild. You can talk to us. And we want to hear from you. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.